Hello everyone. Today we will learn about the working of AI. And if you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Now let's get to the topic. If you have ever heard about artificial intelligence, then you must have heard about machine learning with it because it is the most important part of AI. Machine learning is basically a process of teaching a machine or a robot by giving the data of it. To create a good machine learning model, we need to collect more and more data, and that is the part where it comes data collection. You can train your machine learning model on every type of data, including images, text, audio, and the time sequence data. And to collect the data, you may go for Google, Kaggle, UCI repository, and other famous repositories. Along with the quantity of data, the quality of data equally matters. And it is not always the case that we find the quality data from internet sources. And in order to improve the quality of data, we need to do some kind of process, and that process is called data preprocessing. Data preprocessing includes data cleaning, feature engineering, and data encoding. Our first step is data cleaning. In data cleaning, we need to make sure that our data is cleaned and has no noise. But if there is noise in our data, we need to clean it. And after cleaning the data, here comes the feature engineering. In this step, we need to make sure that we are feeding the machine learning model only most important data, not the repeating or unnecessary data for reducing the computational requirement. And once the most important features are selected, we need to encode them in numbers so that our machine learning algorithm can process it. And that step is called data encoding. Now let's study about the algorithms of machine learning. For any machine learning algorithm, just keep in mind you have to train it on some data, and based on data we'll have to choose the type of machine learning algorithms. Basically there are three types of machine learning algorithms. The first one is supervised learning, second is unsupervised learning, and third one is our reinforcement learning. Let me explain these one by one. In supervised learning we have the label data, and label data means for every instance, whether it is image, text, or sequence data, we have its label, the corresponding label you can say. And that's why it is stated as the most basic machine learning algorithm. Now let's study unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, like in supervised learning, we have the label data. Here we have no label data. We have only the data like instance of images, text, or any other type of data. So we need to uh, cluster them in a way that they should be separate from each other based on some features. And third one is reinforcement learning. It is a totally different story from supervised and unsupervised learning because here we don't have any labeled data, and also we don't do any type of clustering here. Here an AI agent learns from the environment. Like you can take the example of self-driving car learning from the surrounding roads and vehicles, pedestrians. You can take example of it, and it gets a positive reward whether it goes whenever it goes well, and it gets a negative reward whenever it makes a mistake. In field of AI, neural networks have been very promising due to its greater performance as compared to traditional machine learning models. It actually mimics the human brain. As in our human brain, there are neurons which transport the information from one end to another end. Likewise, in neural networks, we have got here the neurons as well. And for transportation of neurons, we have multiple layers for the specific task. Like we have input layer. Input layer takes the input. Like we are feeding some images to neural network model, so there should be input layer which takes the input. And there are some hidden layers which performs does some operations like learning on it, and learning the patterns, learning the textures and the images. So these are performed by hidden layers. And finally, for the prediction, we have our output layer. In upper layer, we define the number of classes, like whether we are taking the example of type of cars. We have like let's take example. We have four type of cars. So in upper layer, we need to have four output neurons. That shows that we have to classify the cars in the four categories. And finally, we have the activation functions. Activation functions are basically used in hidden layers, you may say, because they work of like learning the data, and they create the kind of non-linearity in the model that will be explained later, and it just performs some operations which help us in learning the data. So you have to keep this thing in your mind. For any machine learning model, you have to train it on some data. I've discussed earlier the features of data. And there are some steps we need to follow, especially for the neural network, that are listed below, like initialization, forward pass, loss calculation, propagation, and finally testing and evaluation. So let's explore these one by one. In initialization phase, we actually randomly assign some values to a network, because at the start of like training the model, we don't know that what are the optimal values we should assign to the network for correct classification. So we do random initialization, and after a random initialization, we have to pass the data through our whole model, and that process is called forward pass. And after it, basically, like as we give the data to our network model, it will make mistakes, and based on those mistakes, we calculate the loss, and that loss is called as loss calculation part. And in that part, the loss is calculated, and then it is propagated to a like input layer, or you can say at the start of model, and that step is called back propagation. In this step, propagation is necessary because we have to feedback our model that you're making mistakes, and you have to optimize the network values which you assigned randomly earlier. And after this whole process, we have to fix a number of, like you can say, times, that how long we should run the model for training. And once it is trained, here it comes the testing and evaluation, because when the model is trained, we have to test in on some data, like if it is a new data, so it is also good for the, you can say, credibility of the model, is whether it makes good decisions or not. And this is in this step, we pass some data, and we calculate accuracy or the error based on our type of data. Now let's dive into a deeper understanding how it makes decision. Basically, it follows three steps. The first one is feature extraction. Like when we fed the data to our neural network, it extracts the features. Like whether if we take the example of dog and cat, so dog and cat have the different features which separates them from each other. And after extracting the features, it just recognize the patterns. Like this pattern, if this pattern comes, it is the dog, and if this type of pattern comes, it is the cat. And after recognizing and remembering the pattern, it makes a decision, and that is called decision making. So it was all about the working of AI and the basic understanding of neural networks or deep learning. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel, and stay tuned for the next interesting videos.